Hey everyone, before we get into the video, if you notice a change in how the videos are structured, it's because I decided part way through that I would write out the entire journey across the region. Before, I would just sit and go through the videos I recorded and write out what happens, and add some kind of information during tedious grinding. It helps show the effort I put into this project, but not in a way that would leave viewers losing interest. In hindsight, I should have done this from the beginning, because after I write out these parts, I would then read off the script, cut out certain bits, and then apply the video I was watching on top of it to provide the visuals. It's a whole bunch of work that would have benefited from a nice, clean take, and all I'd have left to do is simply edit in the parts mentioned in the video. It definitely helps in trying to get the work done as efficiently as possible. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's get on with the show. So, put yourself in my shoes for a moment. You've decided you're going to complete the Pokedex. Okay, we're off to a good start. And on your third playthrough of the Kanto series, you play through it as meticulously as possible, catching any new Pokemon you can find, battling every trainer you come across, getting as much evolutions as possible in any given area, and grinding through the wild Pokemon so much that you've likely trained your Pokemon's EVs to their max. You then decide, partway through, that you would hold off on trading over the Pokemon from the other game you have on hand, opting to catch any available Pokemon in one playthrough. Now with all of this in mind, what do you think the next step in my adventure was? Get the flute in order to reach the Safari Zone? Start fishing for any Pokemon that I could? Level up my Pokemon to take on the fighting gym next to Sabrina's? Yep, that's right. I spent 3 hours of my life in this game sitting in front of a slot machine. The main button I kept pressing was the down arrow to place my bets and the A button to stop the roulette. I went into this picking up some coins off the ground and just let luck guide my hand. In the previous episode I mentioned the prizes you can get in the prize corner, but that's just the Pokemon you can win. There's also TMs and hold items like charcoal, mystic water, and a miracle seed. But for the series, I'm just getting the Pokemon, especially Porygon. You heard me right. I built up 9,999 coins in the game corner and spent every single coin on Porygon. And do you want to know what I did directly after? I went back to the slots to get the other Pokemon they had. I spent a total of 18,799 coins in order to get Clefairy, Dratini, Scyther, and Porygon. Now, yes, I could have just gone back to Mount Moon and ran around until I eventually find a Clefairy, but with how high level my Pokemon are, I didn't want to risk knocking it out. Scyther and Dratini are Pokemon you can find in the Safari Zone, but it's one of the more difficult Pokemon to find there, and with how tedious it is to get Pokemon like Chansey and Tauros, it was probably best to go ahead and secure 2 difficult finds. And this just leaves Porygon, a Pokemon you can only get at the game corner. And the kicker? Porygon is cheaper in Leaf Green, going for 6,500 coins. So I could have simply bought Clefairy, Scyther, and Dratini and spent time in the slots in Leaf Green to get Porygon without wasting so much time. I could have ventured deep into Team Rocket's hideout to defeat Giovanni and get the Sylph Scope, but I got so deep into gambling that I wanted to buy out the Pokemon I needed. Nothing of interest in this entire section of running the slots over and over and over again. The only thing really interesting that happened was that not only did I get a 777, but I got a cherry in the corner that got me a diagonal and horizontal row. But really, that was just about it. Now, Dratini's evolution is a rather tough one in comparison to the other Pokemon you can find in Rays. Out of the Pokemon in the Kanto region, you have to have your Dragonair at level 55 in order for it to evolve into a Dragonite, probably the highest level a Pokemon needs to be in order for it to reach its final evolution. After I basically put more money into Team Rocket's pockets, I ran all the way back to Celadon City, going through Saffron, and swapped out Miss Nido and put Dratini in. This was actually a good thing because Miss Nito was already way past the level needed in order for it to evolve. So it just comes down to taking the time to give it a level up in the Moonstone. The only other thing of note that happens here is that I put Primeape in the box and pulled Growlithe out. He'll be a member of this team, so I wanted to get him caught up with the rest of the Pokemon. And what better time to get him caught up than with the Team Rocket hideout? So, the Team Rocket hideout is the first time you'll encounter Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket. There are no new Pokemon to find, only a bunch of trainers to battle. There are also some items you can find here in the hideout, like a Leaf Stone and Awakening. This dungeon is well known for the motion tiles on the ground. You've got to pick the right path or it's back to the beginning. Again, having played through it, I've gotten a good handle on where to go. In terms of my Pokemon, there were no evolutions or anything, but at some point I was able to use Growlithe in battles, since the Team Rocket members have Pokemon that are around level 20. After reaching the final floor of the dungeon, where you have to battle 2 more Rocket Grunts in order to reach Giovanni, I actually left and did some grinding. I tested out different areas, but I eventually ran back to Route 24, north of Celadon City, to grind and get Growlithe to level 25. After that, I went back to the Rocket hideout, took care of the guys outside of Giovanni's office, and then took on the boss of the organization. Each time I took out his Pokemon, I'd throw Growlithe out so that it can get some EXP. With Giovanni and his 3 Pokemon defeated, I obtained the Silph Scope and made my way back to Lavender Town in order to catch some ghost Pokemon. I ain't afraid no ghost. This is the dungeon in the game where you can find 3 new Pokemon. But before we get to them, we have another rival battle with Blue. Growlithe had taken down his Pidgeotto. His Gyarados was actually a Pokemon I wasn't prepared for. I know he is a water flying, but I didn't have an electric type to take him on, so I tried to get it down with Venus. But he just kept waking up from sleep powder. I tried to finish him off with Growlithe, but it managed to get a Thrash out and took down my poor pupper. It was a challenge, to be sure. I had to try and figure out which Pokemon I should send out to take as little damage as they could. After beating him, I stocked up on some items, healed up my Pokemon, and began my ascent on the tower. There are 3 new Pokemon you can try and catch in this area: Cubone, Ghastly, and Haunter. If there was anywhere that my Growlithe could excel in battles, it's here. Every channeler in this dungeon uses either a Ghastly or a Haunter, and my Growlithe knows Bite, so this is a good chance for him to get caught up with everyone. I contemplated on whether or not I'd add a Ghost type to the team in order to go up against Sabrina, but since the Ghastly evolutions are also part Poison, there's no point in bringing them along because they'd easily get one-shot. So I just caught the strongest Ghastly I could find in order to get it evolved into a Haunter as soon as possible. The next Pokemon I caught was Cubone. We then reached the top of Pokemon Tower, where we fight the Marowak that was keeping us from entering the next room. You can't catch her, but we're able to have it registered as seen in the Pokedex, so we can find where one roams around and catch it. Yeah, we're gonna catch a different Marowak, not evolve a Cubone, which is actually a good thing for what I'm gonna do. If you were to try and ascend Pokemon Tower without the Silph Scope, you won't be able to identify the Marowak that's guarding the top floor, and instead you'll be pushed away. At the top of the tower, we have some more Rocket Grunts to battle, but after beating all of them, we finally reach Mr. Fuji. When you rescue him, you're immediately brought down to the Pokemon House, where Mr. Fuji will give you a Pokeflute to use to wake up sleeping Pokemon, like Snorlax. Not only can you use it to wake up the 2 Snorlaxes, but you can even use it during battles as well. The only downside is that it'll wake up every sleeping Pokemon in battle, even your opponents. But with that item acquired, I stocked up on any items I could and went to the Snorlax on Route 12 to catch it. Snorlax is a pretty difficult Pokemon to catch. Not as difficult as a legendary, but the moveset it has keeps you from dealing damage. And when you do, it'll just put itself to sleep to gain that health back. And not just that, after it sleeps, it uses Snore, a move you can only use when your Pokemon is asleep. The Snorlax will also have a berry that will wake it up, so it gets a free heal and is able to wake up to continue attacking. Anyways, I managed to catch it, and the right side of the Kanto region is open for us to travel through. I then headed over to Celadon in order to catch the other Snorlax that's blocking the path. Now I could have just defeated the Snorlax in order to open it up, But as I was catching Pokemon left and right, it was just some haze I was in. I was in the haze of catching Pokemon, so I just went ahead and caught Snorlax, even though I already have one. So now, the route to Fuchsia City is open on both ends, Route 12 and Cycling Road. The opportunity to catch some new Pokemon is laid out before me. I headed towards Cycling Road and battled some of the trainers there. This is another area where you can use the Versus Seeker to battle the trainers. At most, you can battle 6 of them at a time, so if you need to grind your Pokemon up, this is a good area. I also checked the patch of grass to see if there are any new Pokemon, but unfortunately not. I thought for a moment I could find a Ponyta, like in Pokemon Yellow, but they weren't there. In fact, Doduo is the only new Pokemon on this route. The rest are Pokemon I've already caught. I didn't bother battling the other trainers, not yet at least, and unlocked travel to Fuchsia City. I also went on to Route 15 to find any new Pokemon, and sure enough, there was a Venonat. This brings the current amount of Pokedex entries to 50. We only have 101 more entries to go in order for it to be completed. 101 more Pokemons. But not only is completing 50 entries in the Pokedex there, but we can also pick up the experience share. This is actually a good item to have in order to complete the Pokedex. The experience share in this game is a hold item, and it's one you give to your Pokemon you want to level up. How it works is that you give this to a Pokemon, and you use different Pokemon to battle. When you win, the game takes the total amount of experience from that battle and splits it in half, giving one half to the Pokemon you battle, and the other one to the Pokemon with the experience share. So let's say for example I have Venus and the Dratini, and I give the Dratini the experience share. If Venus were to battle and gain 1000 experience, 500 would go to it and the other half would go to Dratini. And this is even more interesting in a double battle. So for this example, let's say that I were to have Venus and Howlet battle some trainers, and Dratini was off to the side. After the battle, there's 1000 total experience. In double battle, regularly, the points are split in half to the 2 Pokemon that battled, but in this instance, 500 points would go to Dratini, and the other 500 out of the 1000 total experience are split in half to be given to the other Pokemon that battled. Now this is a bit of a drawback, since leveling up takes a while because the experience is split in half. Even if you were to battle the trainers the first time, you won't be able to get your Pokemon to level up. Now, yes, there is the Versus Seeker like I mentioned, but at this point I was so confident in myself that I didn't bother grinding some more. I didn't even bother battling the trainers on Cycling Road or the route leading to Fuchsia City. I just went straight back to Saffron to take on the Team Rocket Grunts in Silphco. So, with the experience share, I put a Pokemon from my team into the PC and brought along a Pokemon that needed to level up and evolve. And this begins a mark in my playthrough. It may be because I chose to go through Silphco when I was able to go and take on Koga in his gym, or even battle the rest of the trainers available to me. Shoot, I could even taken the time to use the Versus Seeker to get the other Pokemon leveled up to evolve. But instead, I chose to do this while going through the story. I suppose it's so I can continue progressing while also adding more entries into the dex. But I should have known that I would have ended up grinding some more, because this was where I started to face a tougher challenge than before. And I kept going purely because I had done so before. Because I had beaten this game so many times, having beaten these same trainers so many times in previous timelines, that I felt that I could take them down, with the only crutch being that I was also having to evolve Pokemon as I go along. As I show you my progress through the company, I should also note that you're basically allowed to go to the rest of the Kanto region by defeating Koga. Once you beat him, you're allowed to use the move Surf outside of battle. So with that, you can reach Cinnabar Island, battle the other trainers, and see new Pokemon in places like the Seafoam Islands, the Pokemon Mansion, and the multiple tentacle you can come across. Heck, if you're able to beat Blaine on Cinnabar Island, you'll be able to reach the Sevi Islands and find more Pokemon to catch. More trainers and the like, able to finish up the first part of the Sevi Island story. Now, this is all just a hypothetical. You could simply level up your Pokemon to level 50. You could beat Blaine and head towards the City Islands before you even battle your rival in the Sylph Company. The only thing keeping you from finishing up the gym battles is Giovanni and Team Rocket. In order to reach Sabrina's gym, you have to run Giovanni out of the Sylph Company. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do this before, where they spent so much time grinding up to level 50 after Erika and just challenged Koga and Blaine afterwards, just to see how much you can unlock. I know I didn't, but it would be cool to see.